Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Tampa Bay Water's Board of Directors. Today is February 24th, 2025. The meeting was noticed in the Florida Administrative Register and on the Tampa Bay Water website. The meeting is available for viewing through live streaming, and a recording of the meeting will be posted on the agency's website. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our Vice Chair, Lizette Hanowitz.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see that all members are present this morning, so I don't know that we have to have a roll call, but let the record reflect that everyone is here. At this time, we'll open the regular board meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Seeing none, we have public comment at this time. We have one person signed up this morning, and that is David Ballard Geddes Jr. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, sir. David Ballard Geddes Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor. There is a line item on the consent agenda that grants this board the powers of eminent domain regarding the installation of water pipes and water laterals. I'd like to talk about the powers of eminent domain rights and reverse engineering, which brings us into questioning the reclaimed water variance application, again, which really is not a variance at all. It is an eminent domaining process of residential property. Both of our personal and real property is being subjected and claimed as eminent domain under the statute of 15303, Section 5, for reclaimed water development purposes, carpetbagging us for installation of residential gray water, such as gray water for laundry and toilet use, such as seen in Dana Young's House Bill back in 2012, House Bill 639, I believe that was, and as based on Maloney's Water Code, published in 1972, Section 1.13, this installation of gray water for indoor use, such as toilet use, is to be accompanied by an annual toilet inspection fee, charging us to inspect gray water for our toilet use. Thereby, someone is intending to charge the residents and enter our homes and inspect our gray water toilets, claiming that we forfeited our rights under the Third Amendment when the residents were waylaid into signing this variance application for the futility of water for what was perceived as lawn irrigation, with the tomfoolery of our legislators. The whole construct of initially laying waste to the water deliberately so that they can re-navigate and aid and abet taking our liberties and entering our homes, taking our property for development rights, and calling this due process under the 14th Amendment, allows to see that our so-called founding fathers of this nation, they're nothing more than con artists and con men using the construct of our current government, this government, to promulgate and formulate water despots under the 14th Amendment, reverse engineering constitutionally so, and bringing back the government of medieval England and King Henry VIII and his Bashawas in a constituted act of rebellion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the consent agenda now. Is there anyone that would like to pull anything from consent? Seeing none, can we please have a motion to?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda. I believe, I'm not sure who seconded it. Mayor Davis, please record your vote when it appears on the screen. There we go.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, the consent agenda is passed. We're going to move on to our regular agenda. And our first item is B1, which is the general manager's report. Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's a rainy Monday, and that's good news. So that was good. Let's start with our regional system update. Through January, we delivered an average of almost 196 million gallons a day, and that's about 2% less than the same period last year. So cold weather has had a big part of it, and we've been getting sporadic rains when needed. Speaking of rainfall, in January, we got a little over 2 inches of rain, and that's about 0.8 inches below normal, so it was a little bit below normal. Good news, the reservoir continues to be full at almost 15 billion gallons, as I looked at it this morning. Our consolidated wellfield permit, the 90 million gallons a day for the 10 well fields, is sitting right above 87 million gallons a day, and the South Central Hillsborough Regional Wellfield is right at the permit limit of 24.95. It's at 24.94 at the end of January. Our desal is continuing to produce water. In January, we produced almost 12 million gallons a day, which was the target. And we are staying at that same target for the month of February and producing the same amount. The treatment plant for surface water is at 90 million gallons a day is our target, and we produced 88.4 million gallons a day. And just a reminder, the district emergency order to increase our outtake of the Alafai River at 19% versus 10% will expire at the end of March. So we've reaped a great benefit from being able to take extra water when the flows are extremely high. PFAS, I'll give you a quick update on the PFAS litigation. I know everyone is anxious to hear. We did put on our claims several months ago, and we are waiting to hear what that means. They have points that they have to award to all of the claimants, and so we're hearing from any day to 60 days from now. So I will let everybody know once we know. Knowledge to implementation, it's better known as K2I. We've been a member for the last, I think, 3 years, and we also have membership for each of the member governments. Basically, it's a platform that discusses utility best practices, and there's about 20 utilities around the world that are involved, and we have communications with them. We also have a portal that we share information, and so the member governments just last year were given access, and some of them have participated already with these discussions in the program. And I wanted to let everybody know on March 19th, the administrators from the K2I program will be present here on site, and we're going to have a workshop with the member governments and K2I. The City of Tampa permit, as you may know, the City of Tampa's 82 million gallons a day permit from the Hillsborough River expired. They are in the middle of the re-permitting, and so we did meet with their staff late January and had a great discussion with them. They are renewing the permit at 82 million gallons a day, and they want to discuss with us the use of their aquifer storage and recovery wells, which are attached to that permit. So another meeting will be scheduled in February, and I will keep the staff and the board informed as we go. My quarterly travel, I'm going to report that I had one trip in October. Went down to Coral Gables, Florida for the Water Utility Alliance Conference. And that's an annual trip as the GM of one of 12 utilities in that group. We meet once a year. So that was my quarterly travel. I did want to turn our attention to the hurricanes. There's an item, I think it's C6, that is a write-up of our experiences with Milton and Helene. I think it was the other way around. We had Helene first and then Milton. But what we did after that, we held hot washes internally and trying to help us identify areas of improvement for future storm events. There's three main areas we looked at, was our infrastructure, and how did the regional system hold up during both storm events? Our incident command structure. As you know, we go into ICS, as they call it, when these storms are approaching and throughout. We wanted to know what lessons we learned and maybe any improvements we could do in that process. And then also just overall, take a look at what we did. We did some things very well, but there's some other things we would like to improve on. So that agenda item describes that. There's a full report that we'd like to get back with the member governments and share with. But I did want to talk a little bit more about it in this. There's under infrastructure, there's three areas that we learned some things about. Power loss was the biggest one, of course, like all the members. Our generators were not always operational when we needed them, where we needed them. Access to flooding and our facilities. So we learned how the fallen trees and power lines really got in our way, along with the rising waters to some of our facilities. And then fuel availability. We do, like all the members, we fill up all of our generators with fuel and chemicals, but it's the fill up after the fact, after 2 or 3 days, and then getting access to gas stations for our personnel as they're driving along and everybody's out of gas. So we did focus on some of those things. We got a working group together, and we list 15 things as recommendations, and they're in that item that we would like to further explore. I'll name some of those, including we want to look at our generators, make sure we're getting regular maintenance done on them, and have the available spare parts. One thing we did learn, there's 2 well fields that rely on generators from a third-party power company. And we want to have discussions with that to be able to have better access to those generators in the needs of an emergency. Underground power. We would like to explore how we can do a lot more underground power at our well fields. In fact, if we could do all of it 100%, that would be awesome. But it does take a little time to do that. We have some of our well fields are underground, but there is a few that are key ones that we would like to look into that. Flood zone designations. Looking at some different flood zone designations and how we can prevent flooding in certain areas of some critical facilities. Again, fuel, maybe an additional fuel station down south. We do have a fueling station at our Cypress Creek facility, but now that we've grown so far into the south, it's not practical to be driving all the way back to the creek to fill up. And so possibly being able to put some fuel station down at our regional site is something we would like to look at. And then also evaluate communications for a redundancy. We use cell phones very effectively this time, but maybe there's some other forms of communication as a backup to that. We did not suffer anything from that, but that was more of a redundant backup would be in our recommendations. Also, lastly, I want to talk about some of our facilities and what are the ratings. And so that's in an effort to stage different employees at different facilities. And that became an issue, again, back into the south area, putting people in place where we needed them, but making sure they're in a building that's rated for those high category hurricanes. And next steps, we're going to continue with that working group, and we're going to prioritize those 15 recommendations to see which ones are feasible and order them in time and cost effectiveness. Some of them can be done prior to the next hurricane season, but some of them will take a little bit longer. In addition, I will be setting up meetings with each of the utility directors and their staffs to review our reporting in a better attempt to coordinate our efforts and communications while we're in a storm. We did very well with that. However, I'd like to see if there's any changes that we would need. I know everybody, when those emergencies are hitting, everybody's in a lot of meetings and a lot of things are happening, and I want to make sure we are all in very good communication. So that's going to be coming in the next month or so. We'll have some meetings.
Let me pause and ask if there are any questions or comments on this topic from any of the board members. Yes, Commissioner Peters and then Councilman Hanlon.
Yeah, Chuck, on the fueling, is there a way that you could just partner with Hillsborough County? We have fueling stations all over Pinellas County. I'm sure every county has fueling stations around the county. And if you just have an ID that will charge that off to you, then you don't have to go through the expense of building your own. Or in the meantime, you have that until you have your own.
That's exactly a good point. We have thought about that with the staging. We actually got with the county about having some of our folks stay at one of their facilities that was hardened, but the same thing could apply to fueling as well. So we're going to explore that. That's a great idea. It's already there. Let's just share the resource.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilwoman Hanowitz.
Thank you. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for the hurricane response report. We and our member governments also are receiving feedback as to how our systems handled the hurricanes. I was wondering, are you meeting, and it kind of goes with Commissioner Peters' comments, have you met with our member governments to figure out what the strengths and weaknesses are of our systems to kind of coordinate those? Or is that going to be kind of part of the improvements report? Because I would figure you may find ways where we can collaborate with each other in terms of being prepared as a region.
Yeah, I didn't put it in my mind strengths and weaknesses. That's a great way to look at it. We wanted to have a meeting with everybody to see what they could offer and what we could offer them in the same thing.
Right.
Instead of going out and everybody doing, duplicate the situation with infrastructure 7 different times, we can work with each other with what we have.
Okay,
So that would be very important in that regard.
that's great. Thank you.
Mr. Cardin, let me add that, Hillsborough County is working with the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City. We hired Black & Veatch as a consultant to give us a comprehensive after report of our different strengths and weaknesses after the storms. And one of the things that I think is really important is that the consultants have the benefit of everything that you learned in your assessment. I know the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council did a really good after the fact report that has a lot of good information in it that we've shared with our consultants. And I think it's really important that we get all of your information to them well so they could incorporate it into the report that they're preparing. So we'll arrange that at some point. Is there anyone else with any comments on this topic? All right.
Mr. Chairman?
You. Oh, yes.
Just make a mention, Commissioner Peters, I got a great idea about using resources.
Yeah.
Pasco County is willing to cooperate every step of the way to help with the fuel as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea, and I'm sure Hillsborough will be amenable to it as well. With that,
I do have.
yes, go ahead. Okay.
So I'll talk a little bit about what we've done out in the community. I did want to let everyone know, and I'm very proud that our staff did an awesome job of going out to the South Hillsborough County area. They had 8 separate meetings in a 3-week span. And so those meetings went well. There was a discussion on the new pipeline coming in, and they broke it down, the whole pipeline, into 7 segments and had those meetings just for those segments. So they were smaller. They weren't just one big group meeting. They gave up their evenings and time for that, and I appreciate it. Overall, the meetings went very well. They were very informative, and I know the folks came out with some very good questions, and they have a lot of contact people now, or persons. As we go into construction, they'll be able to get with the right people to help them through that.
Yes. Yes. Question.
Yeah, maybe just, you're bringing that up. Maybe you could just briefly, I know it was in the consent, just talk about the issues with any easements that are coming that you bumped into, any issues that are out there that we need to be aware of, or do they seem rather standard so far? So
I will answer that, but Maribel's there in case she'd like to answer it differently. I think it's going very well from what we expected. There is good progress being made with the voluntary takings, and then you see there's some resolutions there for some of the eminent domain. By and large, most of the takings are temporary easements. There is no houses being taken per se. We eliminated that early in the project where there was 2 of them, and we bought those houses and moved some of the pipeline around. So I think it's going very well. The biggest concern, I think, is what we've probably learned is some of the businesses. How not to disrupt some of the businesses while we're in front of them with going through with the pipeline. So that's probably my main concern right now with that, is keeping everybody's business going. Anything else, Maribel?
Unless you have a specific question, I can go over.
No, just that, haven't heard a lot of over here, but I don't know if Hillsborough County has been hearing any issues along the way, but obviously this is one of the most concerning things that we do, we can create by what we're doing, so.
Correct, and to address the question of the businesses that we will be affecting, our team is working very, very hard on coordinating maintenance of traffic and access into the business that will be affected. We are establishing a good process on reaching out to them ahead of time and coordinating with them and doing anything that we can, basically, to minimize any of the impacts that we have with the public.
Thank you.
Let me add, I know we have some people that joined us this morning that have some concerns about this project. And after the meeting's over, we're going to sit down with you and talk about it. But since you came after the public comment section, we'll give you an opportunity for public comment after the meeting, and then we'll meet with you as soon as the meeting's over. You sent me a letter this past week that I'm in receipt of, and it is about this topic. So we will circle back to that later. Is there anything else on this topic before we move on, Chuck, from your report?
No, I think that's it. I did have a couple last slides.
Okay, go ahead.
At the beginning of the month, we went to the Great Explorations Children's Museum. They celebrated World Wetlands Day celebration, as you can see in the pictures. Also, the board did approve funding partnership for a Tampa Bay water exhibit at the museum, and I know the work is underway. It'll be called Wonders of Wetlands Exhibit, and so they will be having a groundbreaking ribbon cutting, and you will all be invited. We also sponsored and we exhibited at the St. Pete Science Festival on February 8th, and I'm told there was over 10,000 attendees at the event, and so it was a huge success. Just a couple odds and ends at the end here. I wanted to thank the Finance Department. They received another certificate for the Government Finance Officers Association for their outstanding achievement with the popular annual financial reporting. There's several of these, so this one's the popular, and there's 2 or 3 others. And also purchasing. Our purchasing department received an award for excellence from the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials. And so very good. Congratulations to those 2 departments. And I know March is also procurement month coming up. So, lastly, next month's board meeting will be in front of you with a water conservation proclamation. It is March. We will give a water quality update at the meeting and also update you on the long-term master water plan. And the city of St. Petersburg, they will be giving the member government report. And I'm done now.
Okay.
My longest report, I think.
All righty. Well, thank you for that. All right, we're going to move on now to, that didn't require a vote. We're going to move on now to item number B2, and Kelly Fernandez will present this item, which is the general counsel contract renewal.
Thank you, Chair. So we are just about at the 1-year anniversary of our start of our services as general counsel to Tampa Bay Water. At least from David Jackson and I's perspective, it's been a great year getting to know you all and also the fabulous staff and leadership of Tampa Bay Water. So we would definitely be interested in extending our relationship with Tampa Bay Water. We have for you, for your consideration, a contract renewal. I've had the opportunity to speak with each of you about the changes that we're seeking in that contract versus the existing contract. I'm happy to go over those publicly, or if you just have questions or comments you would like to make, I can do whatever is your pleasure.
All right, well, I think I'll open it up to the board. Let me say that I believe that there was a $250 raise, is that correct, in the total? We evened out the number, if I remember correctly.
Yes, so presently, the monthly retainer that we operate under is $24,750. There you go. I know, 40, yes, big change. And what we were seeking was a $250 addition to that monthly retainer, which would even it out to $25,000 per month.
Okay. Councilwoman Hanowitz, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I'm happy with the services, but I do have some concerns because the contract does have an auto renewal and also auto increase of less than 3% or CPI, whichever. So it's automatic renewal and an increase of 3% every year. My suggestion would be we'd schedule a negotiation, including the general manager and the member government's attorneys. We can do it now, but for next year to kind of look at the contract where you're at. I'm just not one that supports automatic renewals of contract without having some oversight and having a conversation at the board level. And also the 3% increase, that can add up to a lot automatically. So I would like to hear what other members think about it, but I would think that just renewing it for a year with the increase that she's asking and then scheduling a negotiation at least 60 days prior to the end of the term, because you have 60 days where you can terminate a contract. So we'd have to have that conversation, get some feedback from our general manager, get some feedback from our member government attorneys, who, by the way, know the market much better, and then we can make an informed decision in terms of the amount for renewal for next year. So that was just my thoughts on that. And Chuck, if you can also just share with us in terms of what a 3% increase every year would look like, because I don't think we do our attorney contracts that way at our city.
Okay, so 3% every year. I will assume that the base is 300,000, which is the new rate. That is slightly over 9,000 a year. That would equal to.
Right, and then but it accumulates. It's
Correct.
right.
So
Yeah.
After 5 years, it's somewhere around 350,000, I believe.
Right.
Any additional comments from board members? Mr. Mariano.
They've only been here a year, and so to have an automatic renewal, I think we're not ready for that.
Right.
Commissioner.
I think it's a good idea to bring it back every year, but I don't think you need a big overall negotiation. You would kind of look at the market, make a decision and go. So I think it could be a regular board agenda item coming back up, just to let everyone know it's still coming up.
Commissioner Eggers.
So what is the termination agreement that we have in place?
I think it's 60 days, isn't it?
I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, so it's 60 days at any point within the term on either side. And maybe I can help short circuit the conversation. I'm fine, we're fine if you want to do it on an annual basis. I have no issue with that. Or if you just want to bring it back next year and we can have the conversation again, that's fine with us.
Commissioner
Also, there
Wassel.
might be a whole new board.
Commissioner Wassel.
So that was going to be my point, is that I'm really fine with whatever anybody wants on this. I don't know if it's typical for anyone to negotiate a standard 3% increase on their contract. Attorneys, I've spent so much money on attorneys personally, it just makes me feel nauseous thinking about it. My biggest concern is that if it is automatic, then, which I don't have a problem with, but there is a lot of turnover sometimes, then down the road, all of a sudden it's out of hand and you've forgotten about it. We had a similar thing that we just renewed on Hillsborough County where it's a 10-year contract, but you can you can renegotiate it or terminate it after 3 years, but then the commissioners in 3 years might not know about that. And then if it's a lot of work for staff to change that particular contract, they're going to just like, okay, let's not point it out to the new commissioners because that would be a lot of work for us, which is a reality that might happen. And I don't know that that exists for the attorney's fees. Look, I think your work product's been perfectly fine. I just don't know if your amount of work scales to the amount of increases. And a 3%, as was correctly pointed out, it's a cumulative, so that could get out of control quick, and maybe out of order with how much actual work is required from you. So that would be my point.
Commissioner Mariano?
And I think another good reason to bring it up is, let's say if you bring it up every year, and you got to make sure you have enough for a 60-day window on there, but on item number 4, it has an hourly rate of $275 for work assignments that exceed the scope of services due to non-routine nature requiring extensive dedication of time and effort, approved by the GM. So I think every year we should probably take a look at what we've done, how much we've spent on the extra, if there is extra, and kind of see the balance. And I don't know what the calculations are as far as, do they submit a work hours that they put into the Tampa Bay Water every month? Or is it something where they just kind of, we're assuming we could pay them that flat fee and we're done?
Sure. So we do submit an itemized listing of what our time has been spent on, even though it's a flat fee.
Sounds to me like there's consensus on the board to renew the contract, and we'll dispense with the renewal provision. And perhaps we can have a motion to that effect. And
I was going to ask Ms. Hanowitz.
yes, Ms. Hanowitz could make it. And
Right.
and then incorporate in when we should begin the discussions for next year.
So I would do a motion to renew for 1 year with the increase as requested, with no auto renewal and no automatic increase, CPI increase, which will be, I guess we'll schedule it for a meeting at least 60 days prior to the end of the term.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry, can you complete that? So I have approved amended motion extending the contract for 1 year with the proposed increase with no auto renewal and no auto increase?
And no auto increase, and schedule it for a discussion at least 60 days prior to the termination of the 1 year contract.
Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, again, just to refresh everybody's memory, last year when we went through the process, we did do a market input, like where are we with all the applicants? So I'm comfortable where we are now, and I don't think we have to do that every year, but certainly having the ability to discuss it, and maybe every 3 years or something that we actually do a market survey and put it out there. But yeah, I'm comfortable with the motion.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, let's vote on the motion when it appears on your screen.
Oh, we should have it there, sorry. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. We have 2 action items this morning. They are both being presented by Maribel Medina, items C1 and C2.
Well, good morning again, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Agenda item C1 is for the approval of the restated and amended joint project agreement for the South Hillsborough Pipeline project. And as a reminder, the South Hillsborough Pipeline is a result of the Memorandum of Understanding approved in August 2020 between Hillsborough County and Tampa Bay Water. This map shows the board-approved pipeline route. The pipeline will be 26 miles long with up to 60 inches in diameter, sized to deliver up to 65 million gallons per day to this fast-growing area. The pipeline is divided in 2 segments. Segment A is funded by Tampa Bay Water, and Segment B is funded by Hillsborough County. We are also going to be receiving up to $147.9 million from the Southwest Florida Water Management District, and we are sharing that funding between the two segments. The pipeline is scheduled to be in service by late 2028. In October 2021, a joint project agreement was approved by this board and the county's Board of County Commissioners. The 2021 JPA established that Tampa Bay Water will design, obtain the permits and property, construct, own, and operate the South Hillsborough Pipeline Project, and that Hillsborough County will be responsible for funding Segment B and deposit funds in an escrow account for this Segment B. The joint project agreement now requires to be updated. County and Tampa Bay Water staff and legal teams collaborated and proposes to restate and amend the JPA. The County Board of County Commissioners approved this amended JPA last week at their February 19 BOCC meeting. The restated and amended JPA adds county-requested infrastructure, including a full-size T connection along the pipeline segment A for a potential future point of connection if requested by the county in the future, and the preliminary location is shown on the top right image. This T connection will be owned by Tampa Bay Water. It also adds the design and construction on behalf of the county for improvements at the county's Lithia water treatment facility. The middle image shows a potential configuration of these proposed facilities. Both of these requests will be funded 100% by Hillsborough County. The updated JPA also identifies the location of the new point of connection at the Balm-Ackmark Water Resources Department Future Water Campus. And the location is shown in the bottom image and is included as Exhibit 1 in the JPA. The JPA also updates project cost estimates based on the 60% design for Segment B and includes the cost for the newly added county-requested infrastructure. It also identifies the allocation of district co-funding amounts for both segments A and B, and updates the escrow account deposit schedule. And it also identifies all the permits that Tampa Bay Water is responsible for obtaining for this project. And with that, staff requests approval of the restated and amended joint project agreement with Hillsborough County.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There we go. Please record your vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, item C2.
All right, agenda item C2 is an action item for the approval of an agreement amendment. Tampa Bay Water uses supervisory control and data acquisition, which is better known as SCADA, to remotely monitor and control our facilities' operations using real-time data. The SCADA architecture comprises computers, software, programmable logic controllers, data network, fiber optic infrastructure, servers, and includes cybersecurity controls. The surface water treatment plant SCADA system upgrades project is included in our capital improvements program. And with this project, we will be upgrading and improving the existing facility, the SCADA system. This project is going to be implemented concurrent with the facility's expansion. We are managing the project in two different phases. Phase number 1 includes the design for the upgrades and improvements, considering its integration with the expanded facilities. The cost for this phase is about $1.67 million. And this amendment and proposal presented today as Amendment 2025-17 is for phase number 1 only. Phase 2 includes the construction and integration phase services, and we will be requesting approval for that phase in a future board meeting. And with that, staff requests approval of the negotiated scope and fee for phase number 1 services in the amount of $1.6 million, which includes $150,000 of owner's allowance.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Hanaway, seconded by Commissioner Wastall. I don't see any discussion, so please vote when the item appears on your screen.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have 3 presentations this morning. The first is from Christina Sackett, our Chief Financial Officer, and it is the certified public accounts regarding financial statements for the year ending September 30th, 2024. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I would like to present Garrett Marlowe with Malden & Jenkins, which is the agency's independent financial auditors. He will present the 2024 audit results.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for having me. I'm Garrett Marlowe. I'm a senior manager with Malden & Jenkins. And just to begin with, just kind of a brief overview. We're going to start with who is M&J, just to give you guys a brief kind of idea of who your auditors are. Then we're going to move into an overview of our audit opinion and the required communications to management. And then if there were any accounting recommendations and related matters, and then a few highlights of some 2024 statistical sections that are part of the end of the ACFR. And then we'll end with any questions if you have any at the end. And then just to begin with, Malden & Jenkins, we're a large regional firm serving governments throughout the Southeast since 1918. I have over 7.5 years, all with M&J, and I work entirely in the governmental section. We're nationally recognized as a top 100 public accounting firm in the U.S. by IPA and Accounting Today. We serve over 700 governments throughout the Southeast, and approximately 70 are standalone business type entities such as Tampa Bay Water. And over 175 of the clients that we serve do receive the GFOA certificate for the achievement for excellence in financial reporting, which the authority will apply for as well for the 2024 ACFR. We also have 45 partners, directors, and managers, such as myself, who spend 100% of our time working on governmental clients, and over 160 additional professionals with current governmental experience. We're also dedicated to the accounting profession and governmental accounting as a whole. Our professionals teach at various national, state, and industry conferences, as well as one of our former partners is the head of GASB. And then moving into the overview of the audit opinion, you all contracted with our firm to provide audit services for the year September 30th, 2024. We have completed our audit procedures, and we just want to remind everybody that the financial statements are management's responsibility for the fair presentation, and we have issued an unmodified opinion, and this is the highest form of assurance that we can render with regard to the fairness of the financial statements. This is the opinion that everybody strives to receive on a financial statement audit. We performed the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, as well as the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. And then finally, the financial statements are considered to present fairly in all material respects the financial position and the results of operations of the Tampa Bay Water Authority as of and for the year ended September 30th, 2024. And then now to move on to some of our required communications to governance. You also would have received a document called our Auditor's Discussion and Analysis, not to be confused with the Management's Discussion and Analysis at the beginning of the ACFR. Our AD&A, we put our required communications to governance in a written format, so you can kind of read the full article in your own time if you would like. But just to highlight a few of the major points, for the accounting policies, management judgments, accounting estimates, and the financial statement disclosures are the responsibility of management. There were no significant difficulties encountered or issues with management throughout the audit process. Christina and Sandro and the rest of the finance team were awesome. They got us everything we needed on time, so that's why we're able to present here on a timely basis for you guys. There were no auditor proposed adjustments, no uncorrected misstatements, and no disagreements with management. There was no federal or state single audit required in the current year as well. Both were under the thresholds for single audit testing. We did receive the management representation letter before the end of the audit. That was great. And then we would just like to remind you all that we are independent with respect to the authority. And then we also, throughout the audit process, there was nothing that we found that would be deemed an audit finding, and there were also no current year recommendations. The finance staff here does a wonderful job. And then our AD&A does include, towards the end, several upcoming GASB statements that may apply to the agency in future years. I'm sure last year the big change was the subpoenas, so that was the GASB 96 last year. There was nothing this year that was of a major change to the ACFR from a year-to-year standpoint, but there are some in the future that may affect the financial reporting framework. And then another item is we do offer free CPE opportunities to Tampa Bay Water employees. So if anybody here on the board or any of the finance staff would like, we do virtual CPE, usually quarterly. We've done this kind of since COVID. So if any of them would like to receive CPE, please reach out to us and we'll add them into the list. And then these next few slides are just going to highlight some of the major statistical items that we have at the back of the ACFR. Kind of starting with the water sales compared to total revenues. You'll see this year there's kind of still another jump in terms of total revenues. This was due to better investment returns as well as some insurance recoveries this year. But as you can see, the water sales is pretty stable year to year. And then moving on to the operating expense analysis. The only major change from 23 to 24 this year was the outside professional services, which was kind of within our expectations. As the projects take off for South Hillsborough and the desal plant, we kind of expect these outside professional services and kind of contractors to kind of pick up with these expenses. Then this next slide is a breakdown of the water revenues by member. As you can see, Hillsborough County, yet again, is the largest purchaser of water. There were no kind of drastic changes in use by any of the individual members throughout 2024. And this slide is showing the water rate per 1,000 gallons from the last 10 years. There has been a few slight increases the past couple of years, just with budgetary increases, but it's been pretty stable, which is what we like to see. There's no major drastic changes in the water rates charged. And then the last item is the total debt to capital assets. And as you can see, the capital assets are starting to increase in 24 due to the increased projects in CIP. And then the debt has continued to decrease with the maturities. However, we know that that will jump up next year with the issued bonds from October of 2024. Thank you very much for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from board members?
I just wanted to say thank you. It's very helpful.
I thought it was a great presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, I just can't believe there were no significant difficulties in dealing with staff. I'm kidding. Just kidding, Christina. I'm glad to see that maybe you pushed back a little bit because it says significant. But congratulations, Christina, to you and your staff. That's good work. It's always great to get the unmodified. It helps me reduce the amount of time I have to look at this big thing. So I really appreciate that, and keep up the great work, and thank you for your work this year.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, we are going to move on now to D2, which is the annual demand forecast update and evaluation. Mr. Warren Hogg. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This morning I have a brief presentation for you on our annual demand forecast update. The technical report that's attached to the agenda item contains a lot of information about how we updated the model and the complete results. The presentation this morning is for your information only, and I will not request any action today. We use our annual demand forecast update to help us prepare our annual budget. It also helps us to plan for how we balance our water supply use for the coming year. Incorporating the annual forecast into our budget process does help us to manage future effects on the uniform water rate, helps us understand what may be coming and how to manage through that. We also use the data in our master water plan updates to determine when we need the next water supply source and how much or the quantity that we need from it. The probabilistic nature of the future demand forecast helps us understand both the reliability of our water supply system, and also the inherent uncertainty that comes with any forecasting model. It's important for us to update this every year to make sure that we develop that next water supply source and bring it online in time to meet the growing demand. We forecast for 7 water demand planning areas that coincide with your service areas. The South Hillsborough County service area, which is shown in the reddish-orange in the bottom right, it does include the recent Phase 1A expansion, but the demand forecast is at the current approved residential densities. We do continue to work with Hillsborough County to understand if the possible effects on demands, if that service area is further expanded or the residential zoning densities are modified. We incorporate separate models for 3 different use sectors: single family, multifamily, and non-residential water uses. And we annually update the models using economic growth projections and billing data from the member governments. This year's period goes to the year 2044. The models incorporate a lot of data to update this each year. The data we receive from the member governments is essential to helping us prepare the forecasts. We also incorporate data from the Bureau of Economic and Business Research, or BEBR, and the U.S. Census Bureau, and we use socioeconomic data from Moody Analytics and other sources. This is the demand forecast for the Tampa Bay area for fiscal years 2025 through 2044. It's a tool we use to look forward in time and see what the possible demands could be, so we have time to prepare for them. This is the total regional demand, and it includes all the water that's consumed by each of the members, not supplied by Tampa Bay Water. The dark line in the middle is the median forecast demand for each year from 2025 to 2044. And the dark or the lighter green dashed lines at the top and bottom are the 5th and the 95th percentile or confidence interval of future demands. The further away we get from that center black line, it's less likely that those demands will happen, but it's still possible, so we have to consider it in our planning. The uncertainty does increase in the future. That's why we update the model each year. We need to stay ahead of those changes. In the final year of our projection, 2044, we are expecting the region to need about 332 million gallons per day. That's down about 3 MGD from the projection last year, and that's due to some updates to the factors that drive the consumption of water. We determine Tampa Bay Water's forecast delivery to the members by taking that annual regional forecast and subtracting out any self-supply quantities from some of the member governments. The forecast water delivery for fiscal year 2026 is 209.71 million gallons per day, which is the same as what we have in the current year budget. And that's due to a reduction in regional water demand during 2024 due to the outdoor irrigation restrictions that were in place for almost all of that year. We have met with the member utility directors and staffs to go over our and your demand forecast updates, and the member staffs have concurred with our projections. The forecast continues to predict higher population and water demand in our region, with the highest growth areas in South Hillsborough County and Pasco County. We'll incorporate the new projections into our fiscal year 26 budget, and we'll continue to evaluate when we need to bring that next water supply source online and the quantity that will be needed. Information guides our long-range planning, making sure that we bring that next source online on time. This concludes the remarks I had prepared, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from board members? Commissioner Westall.
On your last graph there, it showed the most significant growth to be in Hillsborough in the city of Tampa per agency. So I just want to confirm, is there any reasonable concerns that we might have or should have about our ability to provide potable water to that level of demand increase? Or do we believe that there is ample supply for the demand that we project?
We have that unequivocal obligation to meet all of your demands. And through the master water plan, we identified those potential sources and we time it with what we need, where we need it, and how much that we need. So this agency will continue to meet the demands of each of the members each year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, thank you for the update, and it's nice to see that we've kind of gotten the same kind of the feedback from our member governments that reflect confidence in what we're projecting. It's not always been that way, right? And some iterative processes that we go through. I would imagine that most of it depends on the member government's anticipated new communities that are created, whether it's in Pasco or South Hillsborough. But I am sure as you talk to each of those member governments, they've got their ear to the ground. So again, appreciate the work, and I think this is good information.
And we've timed our presentation now to February of each year so we can receive the Exhibit K reports each year from the members, which is your forecast demands, have time to meet with each of your staffs, and make sure that our projections are consistent.
Councilwoman Hanowitz and then Commissioner Mariano.
Just a question. In terms of your presentation, you said that the models obviously are based on approved residential densities as they are right now. So I'm wondering, when is it that, I guess, you receive information based on densities, like changes or upcoming changes on densities? In the past, have there been any huge changes that kind of shift the model, significantly? Because I'm just curious how that happens in terms of, we had conversations in the city of St. Petersburg upzoning the whole city, right? Like, get rid of single family homes and upzone the how do those type of things affect, I guess, your forecast and
Every change in zoning requires the public hearing process for any member, and that gives us ample time to look ahead at the forecast changes. That's a critical reason that we update these each year. So if there's changes that have been made during a year, those will be reflected in the following year's forecast. That helps us to stay ahead of those changes before that new development does come online.
Okay. Okay. And has there ever been a huge change in zoning in the past that makes a huge difference in terms of the forecast, in terms of the numbers per se?
In an immediate sense, no.
Okay.
But a large expansion of a service area would obviously have a large impact in the future years. Okay. So if we keep looking ahead, if a service area were to grow by 20%, over time, that will be a significant change to the model that we have today.
Okay.
We'll have time to prepare for it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Mariano and then Commissioner Westall.
Can you go back to the previous slide with the chart, the graph going up? Maybe it's hurricane related, whatever, but at the very first black dot connections from 284 to 278, was it maybe hurricane attributed to maybe people aren't here as much right now trying to rebuild, not using as much water, or what do you think was the cause for that drop?
The change in those two dots, that's fiscal year 23 to 24. The significant drop in water year 2024 was the outdoor water restrictions that were in place from, I believe, mid-November through the end of that reporting period at the end of September the following year. That, with a little bit of cooler and wetter weather, had a significant reduction in regional demands. The lower shift in the out years is because the whole line has shifted down accordingly.
Do you anticipate if we keep these restrictions that may shift even further, or do you think it's going to stay where we've got it?
With the existing restrictions, it would likely stay about where it is. If additional members were to change their irrigation schedules or days, that could have a resulting effect. Right now, we will be understanding what the implications are for the city of Tampa because they recently went to year-round, one-day-a-week restrictions. So that will be factored into this and the coming projections for Tampa. So Pasco is already on that schedule and Tampa has joined.
Thank you.
Commissioner Westall?
I'll rephrase my question after hearing Member Hanowick's question. Do these growth numbers for Hillsborough County currently project the many, since you said public hearings, the many public hearings that we've had about the likely need to expand the current urban service area?
The projections in this model are for the red shaded area, which is the South Hillsborough service area. There was a fairly recent addition, which I mentioned was the Phase 1A expansion. This does include that geographic area, but at the currently approved zoning densities. I know there are continuing public hearings to make further changes. Those changes would be reflected in future annual demand forecasts, not the current one, but as we look each year, we would have that, any updates included. I know that county staff is looking forward, anticipating some changes, so we're continuing to talk with your staffs about what that may mean for the region.
Okay.
Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, and just to go back to the supply side, we have a new supply coming online. I call it the 2028 project. And we're looking now at the 2033 timeframe. So it's obviously come to like every 5 or 6 years so that we can stay on top of the changes that some of the growth counties are going through. And I think that's going to be a continued effort. I would imagine that we'll be looking at 38 once we've chosen 20 or 33. So we'll be right into that next one. I think that's a healthy way to look at it anyway. And even if we ever have to move it back, that's okay. If we come up with other sources or we mitigate enough use or whatever, if the Hillsborough starts using their reclaimed and instead of potable water, you know, that kind of thing. Just, that was for Josh. Anyway, he's not listening. But that's all I've got. I just really wanted to say, I think we're on top of that every 5-year thing, and I think that's a good thing.
And our annual updates help us refine that next phase for 2023. Maybe it's 2038, rather. Is it 37? Is it 39? As we look into the future, it gives us information that we can use to plan.
And just to follow up on Commissioner Westall's line of questioning, this assumption is based on whatever the watering allowances are currently. So, for example, if Hillsborough has 2-day-a-week watering, that's what's projected in here, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our final update is going to be on capital improvements, construction update, and Rick Menzies will present that item. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I will be providing an update on construction projects within Tampa Bay Water. The map shows the location of our active construction projects. We currently have 7 projects with the budgeted construction costs of about $44 million. The Desalination Facility Intake Connection Improvements Project provides a new seawater intake at TECO's Big Bend Power Plant. The project installs a new pump station and a new above-ground pipeline. Completion is scheduled for this coming May. Work has started again on the Eldridge Wild Well Field improvements. The project replaces the well houses, pumps, and motors at 24 well sites. The replacement contractor is working to complete the first 7 well sites, which is Group 1, by the end of March. Work will then begin on the 7 Group 2 well sites, followed by the 10 remaining Group 3 well sites. The Cypress Creek Chemical Piping Replacement Project replaces the chemical feed systems and piping for 3 chemicals: chlorine, bleach, ammonia, and caustic. After the underground chemical and electrical lines are trenched in, the contractor will move inside the chemical building and begin replacing chemical feed pumps and associated piping. Completion is scheduled for January of next year. The Desalination Variable Frequency Drives Replacement Project is being done by the desal plant contract operator. The drives power various pumps throughout the desal plant. A total of 13 drives are being retrofitted and upgraded with new internal parts. 6 drives are complete. Work on the remaining 7 is scheduled to be done in February of next year. The IT Technology Renewal and Replacement Program replaces uninterrupted power supplies, firewalls, and servers at the IT data centers located here in the Clearwater Administration Building and at the Cypress Creek IEM Building. Final completion is in September of 2026. The Cypress Creek Lab Building transformer replacement will enable the laboratory building and its equipment to have automatic backup power. This will be done by installing a new transformer and tying electric service into the existing pump station switchgear. Completion is scheduled for January. The Cypress Creek Pump Station Variable Frequency Drives project replaces 1 drive and retrofits 2 drives with new control boards and modules. The drives being worked on power 3 pumps at the Cypress Creek Pump Station. Equipment and materials have been ordered and have about a 1-year lead time, so work on site will not begin until about a year from now. Final completion is set for October 2026. Along with these projects in active construction, we have 4 projects where construction work is now complete, and we are in the process of closing out these projects. New pumps and motors were installed at 10 well sites in the Cypress Ridge well field, along with 3 new generators. Concrete trenches were repaired, and new reverse osmosis racks were built at the desal facility. New chemical feed pumps, storage tanks, and piping for bleach and ammonia were replaced at the high service pump station, and new compressors and compressed air piping were installed at the regional reservoir. All 4 projects are being completed under the board-approved contract amounts. Looking ahead, we have 9 projects that are scheduled to start construction this calendar year, with an estimated construction cost of $536 million. The South Hillsborough Pipeline and the surface water treatment plant expansion account for about $500 million of that cost. This concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Mariano.
Could you go into what's going to happen exactly at Crossbar?
At Crossbar? Yeah. For the underground, what that is the state is widening State Road 52. And we have to tunnel under State Road 52 again.
That's what we talked about. Okay.
It's a 60-inch pipeline that will be replaced.
Thank you.
Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, this is, I don't know who the question's for, frankly, but the desal plant, we've done a lot of upgrades there, and the cost of producing water there obviously is significantly more than the other sites. And we keep talking a little bit from time to time about brackish water versus salt water. So I just don't, how significant of a change is that, and where does the actual water the desal, where does that come from? Where does the brackish water come from? And what kind of augmentations or changes to the system? Is that?
The current water for the desal comes from TECO, which gets it from the bay. They use it in making the power. And so we've been doing that for years. It's very energy intensive because of the high salt content in that water. So it takes a lot more pressure to push through those membranes to do that. Brackish water would be a source outside, near the coast, in wells dug near the coast. Bring the water in. It's less salty, so therefore you would save money on the power because you would not need the horsepower motor, and the membranes would be slightly different. They would not be the same exact membranes used. So it's cheaper using the brackish. Doesn't mean it's cheap as groundwater or surface water, but it is cheaper than the salt water.
And where is that in the thought process that we're, as we look out for?
It's a part of the feasibility study for the next round of projects, 2033 rounding. So, we did just modify the plant as we made changes. We have 5 racks instead of 7. We used to have 7, and so there's room for expansion. And so That might play into the future, I don't know, but we have some options into the future now.
Thank you.
All right. All right, at this time, I'm going to pass the gavel to Mr. Carden for other administrative matters and old business.
Yes, sir, it's February. That means it's time to elect the chair and the vice chair. I will only be doing the chair, so I'll open the floor for nominations for the chair.
I nominate Mr. Harry Corn for continuation.
Second.
As chairman.
All right, I'll close nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No debate or anything?
We did debate it. You were just not listening.
Congratulations, unanimous.
Thank you, everyone.
You can
All
have that
right.
back.
Thank you. At this time, we will take nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I nominate Lisa Horowitz for vice chair.
Okay. And I see no other nominations. The nominations are closed. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have one speaker this morning who arrived late, and I know she traveled a long way. Mary Odom, if you'd like to speak to us for 3 minutes before we close, that would be fine. And then we will need a motion to receive and file after that.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I will have one thing for old business.
Okay, great. I'll come back to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, and I appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm a resident of Brandon and have been a realtor there for the last 40-plus years. And I wanted to make sure that this panel is aware that the communication for the people who are affected by the South Hillsborough County water line were very poorly informed about what was going on. I was at the Bloomingdale meeting, and why those meetings couldn't have been held earlier before the decision had been made to switch from the blue to the blue line, from the orange line, is beyond my comprehension. There was so little communication for those people that are in the path of this water line that is going to disrupt the entire center of Brandon that has been established for many years, and Sefner and Lithia and Riverview. So I am really deeply concerned, and I wonder how many of the people on the panel have actually driven out there to see how you're going to impact houses of worship, the schools, and the people who have business. You're tunneling under a 6-lane highway. You're tunneling under the Alafia River in an area where the river is really wide. And I just wanted to make sure that the people on this panel realize how disruptive it's going to be for the people in that path. As a realtor, I know that we have to disclose to anyone who is wanting to move in or out of the area that this is going to be impactful for everybody. How in the world are you going to get the children from Brandon High School in and out of that school when there is a trench all the way down the middle of Victoria Avenue? And look at all of the houses of worship. How are you going to get those people out? They said at the meeting there's going to be advisors or community advisors who will take people in and out of their homes in golf carts. Well, good luck trying to get students in and out of numerous schools, including Kingswood Elementary at the corner of Ronell Drive and Kings Avenue. I don't understand why it was decided to put it through the middle of an extremely busy, well-established neighborhood when it could have gone in a much less impactful place. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And we'll follow up with you after the meeting. Commissioner Westall.
Thank you, and I will also be very interested in, and I have traveled the path a lot, both paths that were, so I'll be happy to have the discussion. In the past, this board has had multiple commentaries, and actually a letter submitted about the reuse of reclaimed water to be potable water. And I would like to request that staff invite or provide a presentation to the board themselves about the study from the Florida International University, FIU, that discovered 93 out of 100 fish in 2 estuaries were presented in either their blood or tissue pharmaceutical remnants and bonefish and redfish. And if we could get an analysis on what that presented, and more importantly is that I myself have been told from even members of our own water resources department is, look how clear that water is. I could scoop in there and drink that right now. And that's very concerning to me when it turns out that we don't currently test, to my understanding, in that water for these pharmaceutical remnants. And I think that that's a big educational point that this board deserves to understand as more and more people make the suggestion that reclaimed water should be converted to potable water. So thank you.
Okay. Any other, yes, Commissioner Mariano.
And I appreciate Commissioner Westall bringing that up because I think it's good to look at because I certainly don't want to be going into reclaimed water drinking that stuff. So I appreciate that. With the lady who just spoke, I think we should hear a presentation as far as if we're doing public hearings, public meetings, I would think it would be to get the input and decide if we're going the right way or not. So why are we having public hearings after the decision is already made? I would have thought we'd have done that beforehand.
We've been through the route selection, we hired engineers and they presented routes and we did get to the public and got their input from the routes. And then we asked the board to select the route that we have now, and they did. These are information to the public as the construction will start later this year. We wanted to get out in front of that to let them know what it is we're going to be doing and how we can help mitigate some of the inconveniences. And so that's the purpose of these meetings, is to let them know who we are and how they can get with us when we do start the work, and giving them some schedules of when is their area going to be up for the construction.
I'm a little concerned that, I don't know if the same presentation were done or shown, whatever, but to have that much information come back to us in such a negative way, did the first presentations that were done when the public was being told what was going to happen, did they really understand what was done the first presentation compared to what they're seeing for the second?
Yeah.
I don't expect you to comment on that necessarily.
I don't know about the answer to that. But like I said, we went through a route study and we shared with the public and asked for, I think, some surveys with the different routes, and that was a couple of years ago.
Commissioner Westall.
Yeah, I just, these route selections were happening right as I got here prior to you coming back on the board. But I know for a fact that multiple public engagements were done prior to me even being elected. And over the past 2 years, I myself and Commissioner Cohen have been advertising. There was a website, something like South Hillsborough Pipeline.com or something that we've been advertising ad nauseum to ensure. So, I mean, I just don't know what more efforts could have been done to educate the public on the two different routes. And there was even debates and delay on the two routes that delayed the selection, which is the only reason that I was even involved in voting on which one we took. So whenever we, and I will get with you, ma'am, but I can assure you that a ton of effort was put into educating the public on the two different routes. So, and I know that if any member government that I represent, this one is the one that's most willing to engage with anybody that has an issue. So I'm sure that they're going to be willing to do the same with the comments that we just heard. And I look forward to being involved in that because I am countywide, but I have ridden the routes and will get you all of the information that you need and ensure that there's a least amount of disruption possible. So thank you. I'll yield.
Well said. This was a pretty exhaustive process that went on about 3 years ago when we made the choice, and there was a lot of discussion about it at the time. But we certainly want to continue to work with people, and I know that you all have been very flexible in terms of trying to figure out how to do what we can to minimize the impact. So we will have further discussion about that. Is there any more business to discuss today? If not, can we please have a motion to receive and file?
Receive and file.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Miranda, seconded by Commissioner Westall. Okay, please record your vote. And just as a reminder, our next meeting is Monday, March 17th at 9:30 a.m. That is only 3 weeks from today. So we will see you then. Meeting adjourned.
I was up in